Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the deeply moving, sometimes devastating, and ultimately uplifting story of the film Forgiveness Girl. We're going to navigate through the darkest corridors of cyberbullying, brutal teenage betrayal, and a completely unexpected, life-threatening illness. But above all the drama, this is a profound look at what it actually means in practice to forgive the unforgivable. So, I want to kick things off with a pretty tough question that sits right at the very heart of this explainer. If someone completely shattered your trust and left you feeling entirely isolated, could you still turn around and offer them a literal miracle when they needed it most? I mean, let's be honest, most of us would probably just walk away. But this narrative challenges that basic human instinct. Listen to this powerful quote from our main character, Annie Timmons. She says, "I can't hold that kind of hate in my heart. I forgive you." She doesn't just say this after some minor disagreement, She utters these words after her entire world has been completely turned upside down. It really pushes the boundaries of human grace. All right, let's get into Act 1, an unlikely friendship, finding light in a cruel world. To really grasp Annie's day-to-day life, we need to talk about her physical reality. Annie has cerebral palsy. It's a condition that affects her mobility, meaning her legs don't work very well, and she has to use leg braces and crutches just to get around. And tragically, in her neighborhood, instead of receiving compassion, this physical disability makes her an immediate target. She faces relentless, vicious bullying from kids who call her cruel names and intentionally leave her out. But things change when they are 8 years old. A girl named Jordan moves to town from Idaho. During this disastrous neighborhood party, where kids are openly mocking Annie at a piñata, Jordan actually steps in. She sits right next to her, and boom, a friendship is born over a shared love of fantasy books. Fast forward through middle school, and these two are completely inseparable. We're talking endless tea parties with Mrs. Sanders' cucumber sandwiches, reading together and defending each other from the bullies. By the time they hit senior year of high school, they are standing side by side as absolute best friends. It's this beautiful bond that completely defies the cruel social hierarchy around them. Which brings us to Act 2, the price of popularity, the fragility of teenage loyalty. High school hits, and things get incredibly complicated. Jordan is suddenly caught between two fiercely contrasting worldviews. On one hand, you have Annie, who is endlessly supportive, deeply loyal, and offers this unconditional grace. She even encourages Jordan to try out for the cheer squad, even though Annie obviously can't participate herself. But on the other hand, you have the head cheerleader, Claire. Claire represents this manipulative, elitist worldview fueled by toxic cruelty, and Claire demands that Jordan completely exclude Annie if she wants to maintain her newfound popularity. And honestly, the pull of that popularity is just too intoxicating. Once Jordan makes the cheer squad, the compromises start piling up. First, she bails on their frozen yogurt tradition to go celebrate privately with Claire. Then, she just flat out stops returning Annie's texts and calls. But the absolute worst part is that Jordan starts standing by in complete silence while Claire and her clique openly mock Annie in the school hallways. Annie is completely isolated by the one person she trusted with her life. Act 3, a tragic breaking point, the devastating impact of cyberbullying. Then the unthinkable happens. A single, unimaginably cruel text message is sent to Annie, and it comes directly from what appears to be Jordan's phone. The message literally tells Annie that she is a burden and that the world would be better off without her. For a girl who already feels so alienated because of her physical condition, this text from her supposed best friend just pushes her tender heart right over the edge into total darkness. Feeling completely worthless, Annie attempts to take her own life using leftover hydrocodone pills. It's utterly heartbreaking. She's found completely unresponsive by her terrified parents and the local pastor, Pastor Newsom. They rush her to the hospital, and doctors barely manage to revive her using Narcan and activated charcoal. But in the aftermath of this nightmare, a stunning truth emerges. School cameras actually caught the toxic cheerleader, Claire, stealing Jordan's phone specifically to send that cruel message and frame her? Moving into Act 4, the ultimate sacrifice, when high school drama becomes life or death. So Jordan is totally cleared of sending the malicious text, right? But the immense guilt of abandoning her friend still weighs heavily on her soul. She begs for Annie's forgiveness, and amazingly, Annie grants it. But then the story takes a shocking medical turn. Jordan visits a doctor for what she assumes is just a simple shin splint from cheer practice. Instead, she gets a devastating diagnosis: acute myeloid leukemia, or AML. It's an incredibly rare, hyper-aggressive, fast-growing cancer of the blood and bone marrow. The terrifying reality of this diagnosis sets in fast. The doctors explain that this specific type of leukemia has a meager 24% survival rate. I mean, just think about that. Suddenly, the high school social drama just vanishes entirely. Jordan's situation immediately shifts into a desperate, terrifying fight for her very survival. Her parents aren't a match, and she needs a bone marrow donor immediately if she is going to live.
And here is where the concept of radical forgiveness takes center stage. Annie, the exact same girl Jordan had recently cast aside for the popular crowd, quietly goes and gets tested. Miraculously, she is a 50% HLA match. According to the doctors, this is more than enough to perform the transplant. Annie doesn't even hesitate. She steps right up to save the life of the girl who had broken her heart.
To really understand what Annie volunteered for, we have to look at the grueling medical procedure itself. First up is conditioning, where Jordan goes through aggressive chemotherapy to kill her diseased cells, causing her hair to fall out. Next is the collection. This is a painful extraction process where healthy bone marrow is taken directly from Annie. And finally, the transplant, where Annie's healthy cells are introduced into Jordan's bloodstream to spark new life. Annie literally puts her own fragile body through this intense ordeal just to give her betrayer a second chance.
Act 5. The Power of Forgiveness. A miraculous recovery and a lifelong lesson.
When Annie reveals she is the donor, Jordan is just struck with profound disbelief. She asks, "Even after everything I did to you, you would still do that for me?" Jordan realizes she didn't earn this. It is the absolute, ultimate demonstration of radical, unmerited grace. And you know what? That grace doesn't stop at the operating table. Throughout the grueling months of recovery, Annie never leaves Jordan's hospital bedside. She even brings in schoolwork, helping Jordan study day after day so they can walk the stage and graduate together on time. Through this agonizing yet beautiful process, Jordan finally has an epiphany. The social status and popularity she had chased meant absolutely nothing compared to the unconditional support of a true friend. We end on a truly triumphant note. The transplant is a success. Jordan gets to graduate, and she uses her graduation speech to publicly honor the friend she almost lost. She tells the entire school, "Annie is a miracle to me, a precious gift. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for forgiving me." It perfectly summarizes the core takeaway of this incredible story. Grace really can restore what cruelty tries to destroy. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final challenging thought. Could you offer this level of radical grace to someone who deeply hurt you? It's so easy to hold on to anger, but when faced with ultimate betrayal, will you choose a grudge or will you choose grace? Thanks for learning with us today.